is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a few things that we need to talk to you about today. We're going to mainly be discussing the conditions as well as what's going on in the future after Labor Day, as well as a few other things we're going to be talking about. Some models are starting to pick up on some potential development in the MDR, so we're going to be discussing that in the video as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. Starting off, we have the latest on Tropical Storm Fernand right here. It's currently weakening at this current point in time. It's expected to become an extratropical cyclone and dissipate in the next 36 hours right now. So let's go ahead and briefly go over the public advisory and the discussion very, very quickly. Maximum sustained winds have decreased to 45 miles per hour. Its minimum central pressure is 1,005 millibars. It's moving northeast at 14 miles per hour. And its tropical storm force wind field is currently 80 miles from the center. So we're going to have a lot to be interested in with this right here. And then we'll go ahead and show you the discussion right here just to give you an idea as to what's going on with that. So this is what we have for you at this current point in time. Fernand continues to be a shear cyclone this morning. Satellite images show the low-level circulation exposed to the north of the area of dissipating convection with warmer cloud tops. Subjective and objective satellite intensity estimates are between 30 and 44 knots, which they lowered to about 40 just for this advisory given those trends. Fernand is expected to continue weakening as satellite water vapor imagery depicts the system moving into a drier environment, and ship's mid-level RH values have remained below 50%. The storm also will be moving over cooler SSTs into a higher wind shear along the forecast track. It's expected to become post-tropical tonight or early Wednesday and dissipate in the next 48 hours as it moves into an as it opens into a trough. So that's kind of your gist that we have with Fernand. We'll probably not discuss it again at this current point in time because Fernand is moving out to sea at this current point. That's what we have going on in the Atlantic for the moment, and it is something to keep an eye on. However, it doesn't look like it's going to be doing that much at this current point. Most of the stuff Fernand did was yesterday. It was up to 60 miles per hour, so that's definitely something you're going to want to pay attention to. However, we're going to want to look at what's going on in the future right here because we do have some interesting stuff happening, I'd say starting after Labor Day weekend, so we're going to want to watch this. This lull may not be pretty good news for now, but it's not going to last for a little for long because as we get towards potentially after next this week pretty much and after the weekend, then we're going to start seeing potentially more stuff starting to fire off, and we'll go ahead and show you those models now just to kind of give you an idea of what we may potentially be seeing. So starting off right here, we have the European model. This is just fresh, hot off the box right here that I've been watching. Also, some of the other models are picking up on this as well. I'm also gonna show the ensembles to kind of see, okay, how is the operational and how are the ensembles starting to kind of collaborate with this? So we're gonna have to pay attention. But here is the Europeans' operational run right here. So ultimately a pretty quiet pattern for the next few days right here. But then starting, I would say, about 5 days out from now, you do start seeing a tropical wave emerging off the coast of Africa right here, just south of the Cabo Verde Islands, according to the 0Z Euro right here. Some of the models are kind of split onto where it emerges. Some are wanting it further to the south. Some want it just along the Cabo Verde Islands. Some want it a little bit further up to the north. And where that placement is will be kind of critical at that point. But you have this tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, starting to get its act together a little bit. It does have a closed low, although it's pretty broad and disorganized at this current point. So this is by around September 3rd right here, but then around September 5th is when the system starts to organize and strengthen a bit more. You're looking at this as it approaches the Lesser Antilles. As it starts to move into those better conditions right there, you do start seeing the system really starting to turn up and potentially intensify very quickly into a hurricane, but by the time it does that, this is about 15 days out, although there is another interesting tidbit right here is that the next tropical wave actually does come off the coast of Africa and also starts to develop right here. So those are two areas we're definitely going to want to pay attention to right here. Europeans been starting to get a bit more aggressive with how it wants to organize and develop these systems right here, and it kind of aligns with what the Climate Prediction Center is advocating for, so we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. Looking at the ensembles, let's go ahead and pull these up. We have the 0Z ensembles pulled up. This is about, I believe this is the 10-day forecast right here. Pretty interesting stuff. You're starting to see more and more of these ensembles really start to turn up right here as you get towards the end of the time period. Let's go ahead and go back to 100 to about a week out. And similar to what we kind of saw before, what we do have is this wave coming off in the next 5 days. You start seeing a lot of these ensembles pick it up. I would say after about that week period, yeah, you start seeing those ensembles tracking about 5 days out. Then we go to 6 days out for you right here. More ensembles start picking up on it just a little bit more. And then 7 days out, more and more of these ensembles really start to pick it up. And they do start to kind of show a little bit more intensity as well. So that's something to watch as well. But you really start to see more of these ensembles screaming about potential development starting about 8+ days out from now. And then going ahead and going to 10 days out, you're really starting to turn up, and you're definitely seeing a few more ensembles with power associated with it as well. So this lull may not last as long as some people are thinking right now, because you're starting to notice the ensembles picking it up, the operational runs are picking it up as well, and we're going to have to pay attention to it here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Starting off now with, we'll go ahead and show you the GFS. The GFS is kind of a little bit behind what the European as well as the Canadian and ICON are picking up, but here's what the GFS is going for. Ultimately, the GFS does have that wave emerging off the coast of Africa, but it's further up to the north, like north of the Cabo Verde Islands right there, so the GFS really isn't doing that much with it. If a system's emerging north of the Cabo Verdes at this current point, it's really not going to have a good chance to develop unless it moves further to the south, similar to what Aaron did back a few weeks ago. But ultimately, GFS doesn't really have that much happening at this current point, which I do think is kind of interesting, how the Europeans kind of calling for stuff while the GFS is saying, hold on, we're not 100% sure on this yet. And just for my own curiosity, I do want to check the GFS ensemble runs very quickly, just to kind of get a general gist as to, okay, what is going on with this right here. Okay, never mind. That's not what I was looking for. Let's go ahead and get this very quickly get this very quickly right here. Here is okay. Never mind. We'll deal with the GFS ensembles a little bit later. I was kind of struggling with those a little bit, but ultimately, that's kind of what we have with the GFS. The GFS doesn't really show that much, but the Canadian and the ICON are in agreement with the Euro for the most part right here. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, you do have this tropical wave emerging off the coast of Africa. The Canadian actually wants this further to the south compared to the European with the Cabo Verde Islands, and then waiting until it gets towards the central MDR for it to start to potentially organize and develop. And by the time we get to about 10 days out, you do start seeing an increased, you start seeing an increased amount of organization, and you start seeing a closed low really start to tighten up around the area as well. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. So that's your Canadian ride right there. Definitely showing something starting to fire off in the MDR as well. Definitely starting to show potentially maybe the wave after that will could do something as well. We'll have to see in the next few days. But then going to the ICON run, I know the ICON is not the most realistic right here, but when you throw it into the aggregate with the European and the Canadian run as well, it is definitely something interesting to watch, because there are 3 possible scenarios that we're looking at right here. The question is, which is the most realistic? The ICON actually has the system developing right away as it comes off the coast of Africa. I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. That's not going to likely happen, let alone be a tropical storm north of the Cabo Verde Islands right there. I know Aaron did it a few weeks ago, but the environment's going to be a lot less favorable for that type of situation to happen. So please do keep that in mind. We'll keep you updated on that here, but ultimately the ICON, when you throw it in a vacuum, it's not really going to be that favorable, especially if it's that far to the north. The European, the Canadian runs are a bit more realistic in my opinion, and if they stay at least online or further to the south of the Cabo Verdes, it'll have a much better shot of tropical development right there. And the Climate Prediction Center is definitely picking up on it, as well as they highlighted that as a 20% risk area going forward. So that's your situation that you have with the model runs right there. So now we can go ahead and take a look at some of the conditions and go, okay, what exactly is going on right here? Why are we looking at these models starting to pick up on this? Why are the ensembles starting to pick up on this? And we can go ahead and show you those right now. Starting off with your sea surface temperatures right here. Here's what we got for you right here. Further to the south of the Cabo Verdes, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at 28 plus degrees Celsius in a few areas. 27 is generally what you're seeing with the average right here. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. But then as you move further to the west, the conditions only get better and better in terms of the water temperatures. And by the time you get towards the Leeward Islands, you're looking at 29 degrees Celsius, which is about 84 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you living in the United States. And ultimately, what the Europeans kind of picking up on, it's kind of waiting for the system to kind of organize and develop until it gets closer to the Cabo Verdes, not the Cabo Verdes, but the Leeward Islands over here, and then start to potentially intensify at that current point in time. And I will be honest with you, the European actually does have a realistic scenario with that, because what I will tell you is the conditions will only get better and better the further west it ultimately goes. And by the time it approaches the Leeward Islands over there and the rest of the Antilles, it's going to be in a lot better and a lot more primed conditions for you guys right there. So you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that as well. In terms of our other threat, which I've been watching, the Central American gyre, look at this. You're looking at 29 degrees Celsius, 84 degree Fahrenheit waters at least across much of the Caribbean, across much of the Gulf region as well. The Gulf's already cracking 30 degrees Celsius across pretty much everywhere right there, with a few exceptions over here and over here. But my goodness, the Gulf is primed for tropical development. The Gulf is primed for quick strengthening as well. And anything that gets into that region over there will be very concerning for me, especially as we get towards week 2 on the Climate Prediction Center's map right there, as we get towards early September, especially after September 10th. That is when things might get a bit hairy. And I remember what happened with Helene last year. Same thing with Milton. Those both emerged off the Central American gyre, and those really exploded in intensity as it approached land over there. And that is something I absolutely do not want to see with you guys right there. Also, not just those two areas, but also a few other areas to potentially watch out for. Off the coast of Florida, you're looking at 31 degrees Celsius. Same with the Bahamas. Same with Cuba as well. Pretty much the entire western Atlantic, with the exception of this cold wake that Aaron left behind over here, is primed for development. We still have a lot of the hurricane season left to go. We still have over 3 months of the hurricane season left to go. Right here, and the entire month of September looks like it's going to be pretty decently active, with the exception of, I'd say, like the first week or so. That's when things will be a bit more quiet because of the stable air and those factors as well. But if the models are picking up on something, you're definitely going to want to watch it, especially going into September. So we'll keep you updated on that here. Let's go ahead and show you the ocean heat content. OHC is also a pretty big concern for me as well. The OHC, as it moves just off the coast of Africa, not going to really do that much. But as it moves further to the west, you go from like maybe 25 OHC to like 50, 75, then up to 100 OHC. My goodness, what a jump right there. And then as you get towards the Caribbean Sea as well, you're looking at 150 to 175 OHC on the regular. Same thing with the loop current and in parts of the Gulf right here. But in the context of our European attacked storm right here, what you're looking at is up to 75, then over 100 to 125 OHC over here in part just off the coast of the Lesser Antilles, and that is something you are definitely going to want to watch as well. In regards to what happens over further to the west, we're going to have to watch what happens with that. But by and large, the two areas the Climate Prediction Center have been looking at, it's pretty primed for development already based on water temperature and ocean heat content. Now, we still need to look at the wind shear and the moisture component to all of this, but by and large, you're still looking at a very good environment and very good water temperatures and ocean heat content moving forward. Let's go ahead now and show you what we have with the shear. right here, courtesy of the European forecast right here. This is what we got for you right here. Across much of the Atlantic right now, you're not looking at much shear with the exception of the eastern Atlantic right here, but that shear is going to start to move out moving forward. But ultimately, you do start noticing about 90 hours out, the shear starts to weaken considerably across parts of the MDR right here. And if it can stay out of that tropical wave, then this wave will have no problems gradually organizing and developing. Yeah, there might be a little bit of shear that may start to hinder it a little bit down the road, and as that ridge starts to increase in that region over there. But by and large, by the time it gets towards the Lesser Antilles, that wind shear is going to be less of a negative and more of a positive because it just keeps pushing further and further up to the north over here. And when that happens, it'll ultimately enhance the outflow, really tighten the circulation, and allow for potential tropical development to happen. And another quick cliff note for you, the shear that's kind of wrapping around this 1001 millibar low over here is not exactly shear per se. Rather, it's kind of the wind field at the upper level winds. So that's kind of what's confusing the model right there. That's pretty typical right there. So we'll have to pay attention and see how this will ultimately pan out. But the wind shear definitely looks favorable, especially further to the west for tropical development as that wave comes off the coast of Africa. In terms of the Central American gyre, especially after September 3rd, wind shear definitely becomes a bit more favorable over there as well. However, you're going to want to watch both the Gulf region as that jet streak starts to move into that area, as well as over here in the Caribbean. But those will not last very long. I mean, the trough is already lifting up with the ridge starting to build back in over there. So that's kind of your scenario that you're looking at with both of those areas. So that's what you have with your wind shear. Next thing we'll go ahead and do is look at your moisture component to all of this. Your moisture is pretty interesting to say the very least. Yes, there is some more dry air that's going to inhibit tropical development for the next few days, but starting around August 28th to 29th, you do have another moisture surge that moves into part of the main development region, and you see more moisture across parts of the Atlantic as well in large. And then by the time you get to 5 days out, you have another moisture pocket starting to move out. And yes, there is some dry air surrounding it, but this is mixable dry air. The Sahara air is not nearly as bad as it was at this point last year, which was kind of inhibiting tropical development for the most part until the end of September. I would say that's when we started seeing our big kahunas starting to come off, pretty much firing on all cylinders as well. But by and large, you do have some dry air issues, at least a little bit, but that can be, the European does forecast that it'll mix itself out, and that's part of the reason why it takes a while for it to organize and develop. And then you start to get into another big moisture pocket right here, and then system starts to organize and develop and potentially strengthen as it approaches the islands right here. And if that dry air can get mixed out, this system will have no problem getting its act together and starting to organize and strengthen. Central American gyre does have a few problems with dry air at this current point in time. However, this is more mixable dry air, like I've said before, and all you need is a good push, and all you need is a little bit more divergence aloft, and anything can happen over there. So that's what you have with the moisture component, looking at your precipitable water anomalies. Still a considerably more moist environment than average. That's why the CPC is tagging these two areas as probable areas of interest right there. So we're definitely going to want to watch that as well. I know the CPC, at least from my conversations with some people behind the scenes of my tropical team, does just highlight stuff just for the fact that it's peak season and all that stuff. But what I will tell you is it's part of that is true and all of that stuff for sure. But looking at the conditions that we have as well, and given the kind of at least the more moist conditions that we have compared to the climatological mean, I think that also plays into effect for that as well. So that's definitely something we're going to want to watch. But ultimately, you do have this system trying to organize and develop once it moves into an even better condition right here. And that's kind of something I've been saying this whole hurricane season. You're going to see more likely scenarios where development doesn't happen right away. And instead, as it moves closer towards the Antilles, the systems really start to turn up and really start to intensify as they head towards those islands. This looks like a classic example of that right here, according to the European, the Canadian, and the Icon, and we will keep you updated on that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or ask us questions, join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is in the end screen. With that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.